Now you can jump. Yes.
Namaskar, good evening. On behalf of Indian section, I welcome all brothers and sisters in the study class organized by Indian section. Let us begin the session by invoking the universal prayer. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. Welcome all. Today's speaker, Brother B.D. Tendulkar ji, will be presenting Samadhi Essential Technique of Yoga, Part 1, which is the 22nd chapter of the book, Self-Culture in the Light of Ancient Wisdom, written by Dr. I.K. Temni. Now, I would like to introduce respected Brother Tendulkar ji. Tendulkar ji is a member of Pune Lodge TS for over 40 years and former secretary of Maharashtra Theosophical Federation and ex-president of Pune Lodge, ex-editor of Theosophical bi-monthly magazine Jagrati Vishwa Bandhutva. He is national speaker of Indian section, visited many lodges, federations for propagation of theosophy through the lectures, workshops, study camps, etc. all over India. Now I request respected Brother Tendulkar ji, please present your talk. Brother Tendulkar ji.
Thank you.
Now
Sushma ji,
platform is yours.
for your kind introduction. I also thank the Indian section for giving me this opportunity to express my views on a topic which is, of course, very important for all sadhakas. Sadhakas on the path of spiritual progress. Though the topic is Samadhi Essential Technique of Yoga, I feel Samadhi is one of the angas of the Ashtanga Yoga, which has 8 different aspects, we can say, from yama, niyama, asan, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyana, and lastly comes the samadhi. So, though the topic is Samadhi Essential Technique of Yoga, perhaps when we discuss this topic, it is quite obvious that we may have to deal with all other angas which are interconnected, interdependent, and therefore Raja Yoga as a whole has to be taken into account when particularly we want to study Samadhi as an essential technique of yoga. Because ultimately, a sadhaka becomes yogi when he is successful in attaining that highest state of samadhi, no doubt. But one cannot jump on the last step of the ladder from the ground. One has to climb up step by step. And therefore, we cannot keep all other lower steps in the practice of Raja Yoga out of sight or consideration when we are considering Samadhi as an essential technique. Especially, I would say that we can perhaps make two classes of these 8 facets of the technique of yoga: Bahiranga Yoga and Antaranga Yoga. The first 5, Yama, Niyama, Asan, Pranayam, and Pratyahar, can be treated as Bahiranga Yoga, and the remaining 3, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, can be considered as Antaranga Yoga. So, when we talk of Samadhi, these 3 aspects, Antaranga Yoga, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, come together, because we distinguish them only for the sake of study and understanding. Otherwise, it is one process only, and that is referred to as Sanyama, performing Sanyama on any object of study is the process which is not Samadhi alone, but a combination of all 3, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. And this is inevitable because when we consider man as a whole, there also we talk of 7 principles of man, or lower vehicles of man and higher principles of man. There also we can make that kind of division. But that doesn't divide man as a whole. Man remains an integrated entity. And what is the purpose of yoga? Purpose of yoga, as the word itself suggests, is to unite. Yuj means to join. So we have to put together the different aspects of the man together to project it as an integrated whole. Therefore, each of these angas has a definite purpose in relation to different vehicles and principles which constitute a man as a whole. And man can function not at the level of his various vehicles and principles. He works as one being only. And unless there is perfect integrity and harmony, it is really impossible to work and to treat the path of spirituality and ultimately to reach the stage of perfection which can be attained through the practice of Samadhi, where the consciousness emerges from the grossest level to the subtlest level of the various planes of consciousness on which a perfected being can act. Now, a sadhaka is not capable of functioning on these various planes. Most of us are really awake, active, and efficient in the performance of our functions on the physical level. And that is because our consciousness is centered in the center of consciousness established on the physical plane. It has advantage so far as the evolution of man is concerned on the physical plane, no doubt. So it was really a need of the man in the primitive state. Man who was, whom we call as uncultured man, semi-cultured man, cultured man. And after passing through these various stages, he becomes a man treading the spiritual path. It is a process which involves unfoldment of consciousness on various planes. And it is an occult principle that the consciousness, which is spirit, you can say, can function through a material vehicle appropriate to the development or stage of development of the vehicle. So naturally, in an uncultured man, the vehicles are uncultured, unrefined, raw, underdeveloped, and therefore the functioning of the consciousness on which the unfoldment of consciousness or expression of consciousness depends is very much limited. At one place, Taimini has mentioned 3 stages of development, and for which he said 777 incarnations are necessary. And out of these 777, the bulk of 700 incarnations pertain to that stage when the man is uncultured. He is not much different from the animals which live in herds, in groups. So this is something similar to animals who have group soul. Now man has evolved by division of that group soul into individual souls, no doubt. But those individual souls require development. So till they are developed, they are no much different from the animal soul, which is a group soul. The advantage man has in this upgradation from the animal kingdom to the human kingdom is that he has gained self-consciousness, which is not there amongst animals. There is also a direct descent from the third logos into the human monad. So that is another distinctive feature so far as man is concerned. And therefore, man is capable of evolution at his own will, which is not the case with lower kingdoms. Lower kingdoms are guided by the natural forces of evolution. In case of man, in the initial stages, yes, man is also mostly driven on the path of evolution by natural forces. But being self-conscious, he develops the consciousness of his separate existence and also develops consciousness of his dormant capacities, potentialities, which is absent in lower kingdoms. So, this awareness of one's own divine nature is the distinctive factor so far as human evolution is concerned. Therefore, from the external impacts, as the man becomes awakened internally, the inner urge develops to seek his own divine nature. And that takes a very long time so far as this journey is concerned. But as I mentioned, when he covers all earlier 700 incarnations, he comes to the next stage where he becomes aware of some of the elements of the Ashtanga Yoga. Yama Niyama are the first two in that. Man becomes aware of living a moral life. He starts distinguishing or discriminating between good and bad or evil, and that is a starting point of his evolution into a civilized, cultured, moral entity. Having lived life differently, that inner urge further develops, and he realizes, which is the kind of self-understanding or knowledge, that he has the potential to develop as an individual. But this realization also develops a self-centeredness of consciousness. He develops as an individual, but lacks perhaps that sense of oneness or collectivity with the group to which he belongs, which we find among animals. But man gradually lacks that as he evolves. So that is also equally important, to retain that and develop the individuality. So both these things should go together, without which that unfoldment of the divinity within is not possible, because he has his origin from one, of which all are parts. So that essence, which is the starting point, is common amongst all. But at the same time, each, they say, is unique. So to develop that uniqueness and maintain that oneness, these two things are contradictory. And yoga manages to achieve that kind of combination, to retaining one's own uniqueness, and at the same time to retain that feeling of oneness, which is not easy. Therefore, practice of yoga is firstly not a thing which can be practiced by anyone just by practice of Bahiranga Yoga. Bahiranga Yoga, no doubt, helps us as a preparatory ground to build the foundation because foundation of good character, foundation of development of love, affection for the family, dependents. All those things come with growing civilization and culture. But that strengthens the individual separateness of the person. And therefore, how these techniques of yoga help the growth of the vehicles on the right track is ensured by practice of yoga. For example, we have seen Yamaniyam can ensure the proper development of the astral vehicle, astral body, to come out of those tendencies from which we suffer. We suffer from hate, because we have to establish ourselves as individual. So we compare ourselves with others. We have various kinds of fears, suspicion about others. So it is a process of establishing oneself as a individual superior to others. So that creates also the feelings of superiority, inferiority, safety, lack of safety, security, lack of security. All those kinds of dualities make the life of a sadhaka in the initial stage a difficult task to practice various kinds of techniques which the science of yoga has put in our hands. Many times we say meditation helps, but practice of meditation itself is not easy unless these preparatory techniques are developed. We develop after Yama Niyama asana. In what way asana helps us? Asana helps us to discipline our body. We can keep the body in a stable condition. We can make movements of the body in a skillful manner or in a smooth manner, without allowing wastage of our physical energy, doing things in a better way. Yoga karmasu kaushalam, they say. So yoga is also a capacity to perform any work with skill. Skilled action is a part of yoga. So that helps to prepare ourselves from the physical level so that we can utilize our physical vehicle for the expression of consciousness to the fullest extent possible at the physical level. Once our body is ready, we can think of other things. After asana, what do we do? Pranayama. In what way pranayama helps? Pranayama is regulating, disciplining our breathing, inhaling, exhaling. Normally, we are not at all conscious about these things. Somehow, these things happen involuntarily. Only we get conscious of these functions when we get suffocated, we don't get, say, proper amount of oxygen when we are at heights, or when our lungs are not functioning and we are admitted in the hospital for administration by putting us, connecting us with oxygen cylinder. Those are the things which make us aware of the involuntary mechanisms which take care of the routine life. for which we don't have to bother at all. But in yoga, we become conscious of those involuntary functions. And pranayam is one of them, where we become conscious of our breathing. And it is not only a physical activity. Breathing is no doubt breathing in pure air, rich in oxygen, and exhaling is expelling impure air, which is full of carbon dioxide, which is not of any use to the body to keep the blood circulation pure. This takes care of the physical vehicle again. But along with inhaling and exhaling, there is also pranas, which is the vital power, you can say, or energy, which is essential to keep our etheric double in healthy, sound condition. So pranayama is really takes care of etheric double. Pranic circulation of pranic currents, like circulation of pure blood, that is ensured, because then pranas can flow through various centers which are there in the etheric double and in the astral vehicle also. So one anga of Ashtanga yoga takes care of astral body, another takes care of physical body, third takes care of etheric double. So we can see how these angas of the Ashtanga yoga, step by step, gradually take care of one by one our various vehicles and principles. This takes care of our personality, that mortal existence of man. Then comes the immortal part of our personality or individuality, as we in theosophy call it. So that forms what? Atma, Buddhi, Manas. So what is the connecting link between the two? Mind. Unless mind is really developed, we really miss the bridging element which put them together, the higher triangle and the lower quadrangle, which makes our full existence. So we come to the critical point of development of the mind, understanding the nature of the mind, and to gain control over the functioning of the mind. We hardly have real control on our mental activities. We can very well experience that. Our thought process. When we observe our mind, what do we observe? What is the function going on at the mental level? That observation will reveal many times. Mind is thinking something, even though I don't want thinking. Mind goes on thinking. So activity goes on, energy is wasted, but nothing comes out of that activity. It's like many idiosyncrasies which are there in man. Suppose some people have a habit of moving their hand all the time or their leg all the time without purpose. So it is waste of physical energy. Like that, this is a waste of mental energy. So mind becomes tired, and you see, like a tired man, mind also become incapable of rendering the service needed by the soul. Mind plays a very important role, no doubt, in the unfoldment of consciousness, which is essential for our spiritual development. But that can happen only when the mind is free, only when the mind is open. But mind is constrained by various kinds of limitations. And those are the limitations which come because we have not really kept our mind unoccupied by various unwanted things which keep the mind occupied. Mind is full of the incoming vibrations through our senses. We have 5 jnanendriyas and sense organs. But the sense, which is the energy which activates those sense organs, comes from the mind. And that energy is wasted, the senses being exposed to various external objects which attract our attention. We see many things. And all those distract our mind. Why? Because the senses are active. We receive those vibrations through our nervous system and physical brain, and mind converts them into mental images. So, as long as the formation of unwanted mental images goes on in the mind always remains occupied with unwanted movements, wasting the energy without any purpose. So the aim of yoga is to arrest this movement of the mind. If we gain control over the mind and are able to stop those movements of the mind, then probably we will be able to conserve that energy of the mind and utilize that energy for the purposes for which we want to use it for our spiritual objectives instead of for the worldly objectives. So this is a stage which really is described by the 2 stages, Pravrutti Marga and Nivritti Marga. On Pravrutti Marga, our mind is always occupied with the worldly matters. And worldly matters for the worldly progress of an isolated individual, which is keeping the consciousness centered around the self. So man becomes self-centered and thinks only of the self, and which is against the fact of one life which he shares as an individual, but develops a feeling that he is a separate living individual. He is not. He is separate only by bodies, not by consciousness. But this realization has to come before he really can take his evolution consciously in his own hands. The natural evolution takes a very long time. But when man is able to take his evolution in his own hands, of course in cooperation with the nature, not going against the laws of nature, then he gets additional impetus to move in the direction of perfection. His mind, when understand its real role in relation to the soul or the ego, what is the purpose of the mind? Mind should be able to express the qualities or capabilities of the soul. Those qualities and capabilities are dormant as long as they do not find proper expression through mind. So mind becomes a passage for our development, which is blocked when the mind is occupied by various unwanted things. In that, in the external world, there are various deficiencies that we cannot control. The forces of attraction and repulsions which play upon us. That is the disturbance which is caused due to the provocation of our senses, because external vibrations induce sympathetic vibrations on our sense organs, and that's why the mind gets affected when those vibrations are transmitted through nervous system to the mind, and which result into continuous production of mental images which again do not remain at one place fixed for a duration of time. There is frequent movement of these images, entry into the mind, exit from the mind, one image being replaced by another image. This is a continuous mental activity going on without serving any purpose. And practice of yoga or the technique of yoga, which is called pratyahara, is the thing which can bring a remedy to this problem of the unwanted, undesirable activities of the mind which involuntarily go on. And that is only because we have very little control on our vehicles. We know from theosophical teachings that apart from our self-consciousness, which is the consciousness as a whole, there is consciousness of vehicles themselves. My physical body has its own consciousness apart from my self-consciousness. And the same thing applies to every vehicle. So even when we are not conscious, the vehicles are conscious. So what happens is involuntarily action, it is the action of the vehicles, our remaining unconscious about it. And that is the involuntarily mechanism which takes care of many functions, no doubt, that is essential. Like say, our heart is functioning without our consciousness. So that is something which relieves us from the worry, which otherwise will occupy our whole life. So there are many involuntary mechanisms going on, but that will relieve us from many jobs which are essential for our existence, but which we need not worry about consciously. And that leaves us free from doing something more useful than that. But that does not happen because our mind remains occupied with unwanted things. And that is exactly what we should be able to avoid by keeping our mind free. That's why pratyahara, as a first step, keeps our mind free from all external impacts which distract the mind. So one factor is eliminated by pratyahara, which ensures turning the attention of the mind inward. From a person being extrovert, he becomes introvert, you can say, where the attention is withdrawn from the senses, because otherwise our sense organs are perhaps responsible for this mischief. Though it is the mind which is responsible for the senses, not the sense organs, because that senses make the organs organs, and sense is that energy which is flowing from mind to the senses. So if mind can turn inwards, turn into itself, as the sutra says, I think it is sutra number 54 in Sadhana Path, which describes that process, which describes it that senses follow the path of the mind. So that is actually the process of turning of the mind into itself. So senses, when they become part of the mind, all external distractions, disturbances, which keep the mind all the time occupied and unsteady, imbalance, those factors are taken care of by pratyahara. Once that happens, mind can pay attention to other factors, which are the internal things, like our memory. Our memory takes place of forming the mental images instead of forming images of the external object. So images are still there. Even when we can manage the memory, keeping aside the unwanted memories, keeping them in cold storage, to remain them in the subconscious only, not coming to the conscious level. Still, man has his own aspirations, his own expectations, which drive him to something in the future by imagination, anticipation. So again, we form images out of that, which keeps mind occupied. So we must be able to control not only the impacts and the vibrations from the external object, but also the formation of mental images out of the memories or expectations about future, which are there suppressed in our subconscious. Because when we are free from the external, these internal things become active and they keep the mind occupied. So that is ultimately what is meant by gaining control over the mental activities. If we can gain that control, then man becomes capable of certain capacities, like say, developing power of concentration. If the mind is free from all these external disturbances, then it can concentrate without that concentration getting disturbed by intrusion of memories or other imaginative things. And then if the concentration improves, then we get a focused point of energy, which can be applied to various things. One of the main thing is to become what you think, becoming by thinking, or becoming by being one with a thing. So that, and that is the principle which is applied in this process. If you can concentrate on an object, it is possible to become one with the object. It is not knowing by appearance, but knowing beyond the by going beyond the appearance. It is going deeper below the surface and coming in touch with the core or essence of a thing, so that you know what the object or thing of observation really is in its content, not just in its appearance. That knowledge is helpful in understanding the things without the veil which is created by Maya or illusion. We should always be able to go beyond the mind, which is also called as transcending the mind. Even the term transcendental meditation is based on that ability to go beyond the mind, because we always suffer from the limitation of identification with the mind. Whatever is happening in the mind is presumed to be identical with us. What minds think, we feel we are thinking. Our decisions, our perceptions are identical with the perceptions of the mind. Therefore, unless we are able to detach ourselves from mind and observe the mind objectively, otherwise all this is happening subjectively. We should be able to treat the mind as an object of observation. Then only in that detached condition we can really understand the mind, the nature of the mind, the mode of working of the mind, and the consequences produced by that mind. If we understand that, then it is possible to bring about the necessary changes or to take corrective action, and that is really the process of controlling the mind. A man who can control a mind develops certain siddhis also. They are not really siddhis in the spiritual sense, but they are, as HPB has called them, iddhis, or you can say lower siddhis, or they are psychic siddhis, not spiritual siddhis. You can understand the difference between psychic siddhis and spiritual siddhis. Psychic siddhis are operative at the lower level of consciousness, psychic levels. And generally, man who is conscious at the psychic level is under the domination of the selfish interest, because his consciousness is focused, centered in the lower mind level, which always separates, which understands by division, by fragmentation, by isolation. So, understanding of the mind is never a holistic understanding. It is never a understanding of totality. It is always a fragmentary understanding, and therefore many times it is really not a complete understanding. So that is also a kind of illusion only. So as long as we are under the coverage or veil of illusion or Maya, we never really touch the realm of reality. Understanding the self is beyond that. These are the stages of Samadhi only when we talk of Dharana and Dhyana. But we are trying to understand the object, not the self, in the earlier stages of Samadhi. If we succeed in understanding the object, then that object can be replaced by the self. As long as mind is occupied with the object, we cannot really touch the self. Self has to create that space in the mind. And that space in the mind can be created when the last object on which we have focused in mind also drops, and mind is really empty. And that is the state when the consciousness can move upwards from the lower mental level to the higher mental level, which is the area where you are free from the veil of Maya, the obstacles which come in your process of perception. And then only really you can become, in the true sense, one with the object of perception and can see the object as it is. That is a stage where we generally talk of Sabija Samadhi. Sabija Samadhi, where that bija or that image of the object remains in the seed form. And when that is also dropped, when there is no mental image in the mind, then when consciousness moves upwards from plane to plane, you should be able to maintain that state for a span of time that is required for the movement of the mind from plane to plane or from subplane to another subplane. One point which is worth remembering is there is a common center of consciousness which connects all the planes. So at every time when the consciousness escapes from a particular plane, it finds an opening at that common center of consciousness. And that is a point of time when, if you are able to maintain that state of mind without allowing the mind to shift its attention and get its engaged with any other mental image. No mental image should be formed during that time of interval when the consciousness finds an opening from one subplane to another higher subplane through that common point of opening, so that it will automatically move to the next plane. That is the natural mechanism. But we have to work towards it initially with deliberate, conscious effort. And for that, controlling the movements of the mind is necessary, which Patanjali calls Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Nirodha means stopping all those modifications which takes place in the mental body due to the external or internal impacts causing different mental images. If we can control that, then and retain that state of mind, how long one can remain in that state of meditation, allowing the consciousness to move from one subplane to another consecutively in succession for a period of time, will decide the success of meditation. Of course, if one is able to continue that state even when the meditation is over, then probably it is possible to remain in that state of samadhi, being able to control the movement of consciousness as per the needs of fulfilling your duties and responsibilities. Because for that, you cannot always remain at those levels, lofty levels of atmic or buddhic states, when you are really wearing your physical body and performing your duties and responsibilities, which can be discharged only by the lower vehicles. So
Sir,
so I think here we will stop and we will continue. I think next Monday, next Sunday. Yes, this topic needs more elaboration to cover the topic fully. So we will continue with that topic next time. Now perhaps I think if there are any points to be discussed, clarified, I think we have some time.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful presentation on the subject. You have thrown light on the 8 limbs of yoga, which is divided into 2 parts, Bahirang Yoga and Antarang Yoga. And Samadhi is one of the limbs of Antarang Yoga. I remember the quote of Annie Besant. She says, Yoga is Samadhi. It is the power to withdraw from all that you know as body and to concentrate yourself within. That is Samadhi. And you have elaborated this thought in your whole lecture. I am very thankful to you. Now the platform is open for the participants. Participants can ask questions from speakers, or they can add if they want to add something. Now the platform is open.
You can talk from your own experience also of meditation or
Sir, the time is over now, but just I want to say that yoga is an applied science, a systematized collection of laws applied to bring about a definite end of individual's life. So if we will practice yoga, then we will reach to self-realization. And first step is self-discovery, and the second step is self-realization. That is the ultimate goal of life, and yoga takes us there. Is that ultimate destination? I think so.
As Sushmaji rightly said, it is not just theoretical science, it is a practical science. So only when we start practicing, we really realize the possibilities of realization. Because realization comes through experiencing things. And experience comes only with practice. So we must start practice, not just study of science of yoga from the book, but from our application of those principles and techniques to our personal life. Then only there will be experience, and there will be gradually some light thrown on the things which appear quite abstract to us. So that abstraction can be converted into realization only by practice. So those who have practiced can perhaps throw some views or opinions on the theoretical discussion which we have presented in this lecture.
Okay, if there is no question, we can move for end. Sarve bhavantu sukhna, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit bhag bhave. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
And thank you,